everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Elian Haan. So, Elian is an author. Uh, she's actually award-winning and best-selling author of the autobiography book titled 60 Miles from Neiman's. She's also the host of the show Alien's Joy. I love that when I saw the word joy. It's a word I use often. She's also a speaker. Elian is also a midlife and transformation coach. So get your sexy back. I love that too. That caught my attention immediately about sensuality, sexuality, and just being feeling alive. That's what it came to me when I hear the word sexy. I think feeling alive, happy. So this is my brief introduction to you, Elian. But in your own words, who is Elian Ham?
Well, Elian is full of joy, absolutely. That's why I called my work many times Elian's Joy. It's part of my little weekly show that I am doing. Thank you for having me, by the way. I should say
Thank
namaste.
you. Namaste to you too.
Wonderful to be here. Um, I'm joyful. I am in a very happy
Uh-huh.
place in my life. At this point, self-created, I should say, because, we can go a little bit deeper into that, how right? We are in charge of our happiness and
Uh-huh.
our choices. Uh, I learned it the hard way. I'm caring, compassionate. I am very intense with the things I do, very
Uh-huh.
passionate. And I like to follow my purpose, right? I
Yes.
have this purpose that, I just want to help. I always did that since I was very young.
Uh-huh.
Very late in life, it became actually meaningful for me. And it actually later in life, got became valuable for me. I just didn't see that earlier in life, right? It was like sitting on the bench with people talking to you all the time, but it wasn't really that
Mm,
feeling that I have now that I can actually help and honestly help myself as well, right? In
yeah.
many different ways. So,
Yeah. That's beautiful though. I mentioned off record about this longing and of course inspired action to help ourselves and others. There's something about it that resonates spiritual to me, or spirituality in a sense of interconnectedness, kind of really embodying that. You spoke of purpose. That caught my attention just now. uh, how do we know when we are living our purpose, Elian?
I know it because I'm very full of knowing exactly what I should say. I know where I want to be and where I want to go, right?
Right.
And why I am here. So it's my why. It's the big question of what
Yeah.
is your why.
Yeah.
And so many years, really intensively, the last couple of years, last decade, I worked with so many people that um, I always say this is
Mhm.
really for all of us, I think, when people are in a situation that they feel stuck or they have experienced trauma or just ongoing PTSD, grief, loss, all these things that we are going through,
Yeah.
then if we're seeking for help, and that was in my case a lot of times the case, people sought help and they said to me, I know what I do. Well, I told them, I know what you don't want,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But do
Yeah.
you know what you do want?
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
is one of my very most important things I talk about all the time because a
Yeah.
lot of people know what they don't want, right? I don't want to be
True.
here or be there anymore. I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke anymore. I want to be different. I don't want to have
Yeah.
this relationship. I want to have better communication. But
Yeah.
what they do want between now and 5 years, or even shorter, maybe long term,
Yeah.
where do you see yourself? Right? And
Yeah.
it's such an important thing for me. So when I started finally filling that in and I kind of became aware of that my purpose, for instance, was like always this kind of VA moment. It was in front of my nose. But
Yeah.
I didn't know it was it, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
monetizing. I wasn't using. I wasn't celebrating.
Yeah.
I wasn't proud of it. I wasn't giving it any value. But when I started finally going there, like I always did this. This is this is my why. This is what I need to do. I need to be here for people. I love people. And
Mm.
so
Yeah.
in that case, I just
Yeah.
really always go with the question, what do you want? What is your why? Why are you here? What do you think that your higher purpose is? What is your right, your destination? What do you want to be remembered by? What
Mm.
is your legacy? I love to use that word. What is your
Yeah.
legacy? Right?
Yes.
Because when I started writing,
Yeah.
I did that in the first place for my son. I
Yeah.
wanted him to kind of know what I did
Yeah.
in my younger years and how many silly things I did before, you
Yeah.
know, finally
Yes. Yeah.
understanding the
That's true.
wisdom that I had to gain from it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I gained the wisdom, but what I was going to do with it is another thing. So, yeah, it's a very important thing to find out our why and to fill it in with joy and with action and with plans and goals and all these silly things that we do as coaches.
That's true. That's beautifully said. And I love when you say higher purpose. That also caught my attention in a sense of, to me, kind of, I interpret it as something that can benefit not just myself, or others. I keep saying that because that's when the deeper I go into spiritual knowledge, the more I see that it's embodying that truth that everything is connected and seeing yourself in others. And doing for them what you do for yourself. So there's something about that when you speak of purpose in general, and then the higher purpose kind of resonates that way with me. Since you mentioned your book, so this is a good time to talk a little bit about it. There's 60 miles from Neiman's, finding your way back from others'
Mm.
expectations. So talk to me about that. What was the main intention of writing this book, Elian?
My son went off to college a couple of years ago, and we were empty nesters, and I had always used writing and also with my clients uh, talked about writing, journaling as a way of healing. And I
Yeah,
did that with a lot of trauma in my early life. And
yeah,
I didn't call it trauma. Honestly, in the days that I grew up, it was in the 60s, 70s. You just kind of got over it and moved on
right,
and don't complain and
right.
do your thing. And
Yeah,
and so I had a couple of decades of a lot of pain that I never did anything with.
right.
Then I started working with people. So come back to what we just talked about, connecting
Yeah,
with self and with others and making that message applicable to yourself as well is what became really big to me because I started working as a counselor coach um, and as a somatic coach in a full time recovery facility for people with
yeah,
substance abuse. When I started there about 8 years ago, I that was about now maybe 10 years ago. I really understood that I was helping people from the heart and with a lot of wisdom learned, but I had never actually really processed my own experiences. So
right.
while helping others, I started really working on myself. Long story short, those years were very valuable. I learned so much and I wanted to put that somewhere. And so when my son left,
Yeah,
the same time I had the time, I created the time to do the book and
yeah,
make that a memoir. It's a memoir. It goes
yeah,
back to what I needed to process and write about. But I
right.
also wanted for him to know the story because when when we're young in your 20s, in your 30s, teenagers, there's no way that they're going to ask mama, well, how did you do, right? What did you
Yeah, yeah,
experience? What was your
yeah,
pain? What did you do with it? They're
yeah,
not supposed to ask that. They're creating their life and they're, being in their wonderful own uh,
yeah,
you know, centered life, right?
yeah,
And they need
yeah.
to. So I thought if anything happens to me, since I was an older mom, I had my son when I
Yeah.
was 41, so I was an older mom. So I was thinking if something happens to me, then this story is on paper, it's all out there, and I processed my story and really looking back and over the years learning about myself and doing the self-help and doing the transformation, I found out that I had most of my life lived in a huge expectation frame.
Mm,
And I
yeah,
used that little portrait on the
yeah,
counter right at home with the family, the happy family in there,
yeah,
the the past family that I maybe had now looking back, but I was doing what everybody else does, right? The happy mom,
right,
the perfect wife, the
right,
the the living in the picture frame.
right.
I almost go as far as, wanting
Yeah,
to have the big house with the granite countertops and blah blah blah, yada yada. And
yeah,
yada yada yada. That's
Yeah.
happiness. That is not bringing us the happiness.
Right.
It's like filling in that perfect frame for other people. And I
Right.
live my life
Right.
to make other people happy and to fill in that expectation frame.
Yeah.
With it comes a huge expectation on your own, on yourself, right? You're gonna
Yeah.
just push yourself to be better and more and fit in and all these outwards.
Yeah.
I need to watch my language. And
Yeah.
hopefully, everybody can understand me well. I
Yeah.
needed to see that this was all from the outside. It had nothing to do with me.
Right.
And helping people, there it was. I'm a midlife and transformation coach. A lot of people, a lot of women in their 50s. Who am I? What am I
Yeah.
doing? Why am I here?
Yeah.
I always did everything for others.
Mm.
I have no purpose. So
Mm.
that's where it came from, telling my story for him. And it kind of ends with 5 chapters of those wise call to
Yeah.
action for everybody life lessons, right? You should
Yeah.
let go of expectations. You should be free. You should be a rebel. You should
Mm.
be, do whatever you want to do, right? And shine your light, and then people will come to you. So, not
Yes.
waiting on other people to fill in those blanks.
Yes, that's very inspirational, especially for women. For some reason, I know men too will resonate with this, but especially for us, there's something about women being, let's say, educated um, to fit boxes and to behave in a certain way. Well, of course, that happens with men too in society and all the expectations for them as well. But especially with women and being a woman, of course, I speak for
Yeah.
myself, and I see that with other women. It's kind of sad, but also it's wonderful to see that there's no age, there's no time, right, Elian, for us
Mhm.
to transcend, those stigmas and those limitations and kind of rise again. And like you said, live from that place of freedom. That's where, I mean, freedom to me. That's why this platform is called the freedom to feel. There's something about the freedom to be, right, that has to do
Yeah.
with feelings and emotions. um, and speaking of trauma, so when did you write the book? How long did that take you to write this book? How long did you live with trauma, per se?
Well, still, when I finally understood that trauma was a thing that we all have, and it was
Yeah,
all in our backpack, and I just didn't see it like that. And when I started realizing, yes, I mean, I lost my parents at an early age, so I never had a reflection point. I never had that support system. I moved to the United States. In my book, you'll read it how I was left by my partner the next day by myself in the United States all of a sudden in my mid 30s. It's what
yeah,
am I doing here? And I couldn't go back. And there was a lot of pain. And I have to tell you, we have a lot in common because I was
yeah,
professionally, career wise, in the fitness and
yeah,
in the dance industry, right? And
yeah,
taught all these wonderful fitness um, things for years, and that helped me. So I
yeah,
didn't even think that there was so much going on till I
yeah,
really started realizing that that stays with you and there's always triggers. So what I really
mm.
realized in my wonderful relationship when my partner at some point now said to me, he said, well, sometimes you behave like a 12-year-old. And with all, and with all the reading that I had done about triggers and trauma and
Yeah.
kept hidden secrets inside, I thought that was just the age that everything started. So,
Ah,
reading so much about
mm,
trauma informed care and understanding that we go back to that place where trauma was really intense in your childhood. We go back to that behavior. We go back to that place of um, kind of want to be in your little child's closet, right? If it doesn't
yeah,
fit in well. And that
yeah,
was when I found out some things in my childhood that kind of threw me into somewhat of a grown up experience. And I was thinking, maybe sometimes I just want to go back to being that
mm,
little child that was hurt at that
yeah.
point. And I also take it as a compliment because I don't want to grow up. So I do want to be like,
Yeah.
like a 25-year-old, let's say,
Yes, why not?
you know, and just
Yeah.
be crazy and have fun all the time. And definitely not fit in when it comes to that because it is just all about
Yeah.
dance and happy music but yes, we have to
Mm.
be responsible once in a while, and that comes with just kind of feeling good about yourself, right? If you
Mm.
feel good about yourself, in my book about I talked about when you
Yeah.
come into that space that you accept and that you can live from the inside and you can choose every morning. We have those choices, we have
Mm.
the chances, the
Mm.
challenges, right? We choose every
Yes.
morning to wake up in our happiness, in our
Yeah.
grateful space, I should say, because
Yeah.
I don't wake up every day like this, but I do. After an hour of work, I do come into a really good space,
Yeah.
and I rub that off on others. I like to be that energy healer, but it is a lot. You have to do the work for it.
Yes.
Right? You
Right.
have to do the physical work for it. I call it a triangle transformation. You have to be the mindset. You have to come into your spiritual knowing that you have that purpose and
Mm.
you belong. You
Mm.
belong and you're accepted is so important for people.
Yeah.
In my book, I talked about being a rebel in the sense of be yourself, respect yourself first, give
Yeah.
yourself the respect you deserve.
Yeah.
Because what I forgot is
Yeah.
sometimes looking back at all your accomplishments, right? When you career-wise has suffered for years from a little bit of imposter syndrome and who am
Yeah.
I to talk about trauma, right? But
Yeah.
I look back and it's like, Elian, look what you did and what you invested in
Yeah.
financially and time-wise and emotionally and
Yeah.
mentally, learning and reading so much. So yes,
Right.
I'm here. I'm here. Absolutely.
Ha.
Full in. Full in.
Ha. I love the childlike kind of spirit, right? Because this is a place that I don't think we can live in or come from when we're traumatized. It's not easy to have fun, to smile for no reason, to kind of play around, kind of be silly. There's I remember not having that freedom, not being free enough to kind of express joy and spontaneity. That was not there. So that makes a lot of sense that when you speak of the childlike kind of behavior in a sense of
Mhm.
just being free to enjoy life, that means that trauma has been, let's say, treated, healed. I talked to somebody else about healing and healing from trauma, and do we ever actually get to the point of being, let's say, completely healed? Do you see that as being realistic, Elian, or do you have a different view?
Not at all. I don't think I think trauma, PTSD. I live with a Vietnam veteran, and he is
Yeah.
very still into that PTSD, right? And I have clients with PTSD. I have clients
Yeah.
with death trauma, with tremendous amount of
uh,
unrealistic pain and happening events, things that happened in their life. But
yeah.
and it will never go away. So one of the things that I
Yeah.
honestly tell my patients and clients, when I work with them, is I accept and I acknowledge your pain and your PTSD, your experience, and I will
Yeah.
not be the one that will tell you it will all go away and you will get
Mm.
well. I say that right up
Mm.
front because I think a lot of us, and that's why I am so into trauma informed care,
Yeah.
acknowledge and respect and feel and be with the patient in what situation they are
Yeah.
without saying I'm going to help you forget this, I'm going to help you get over it.
Mm.
Get over
Mm.
it is like the
Yeah.
worst thing in therapy that you
Yeah.
can use because we're not
True.
going over it. But I have
Mm.
4 ways that I explain my patients to work through. um, and we work through. First say
Yeah.
we work through, right? We
Yeah.
have to do the work first, and we have to do that mentally and physically and
Yeah.
emotionally. We have to do the work first. Then, most of the time, when people are seeking coaching, they want to go forward. So I assume that they have worked through their trauma more or less with a psychologist or with a therapist or
Yeah.
psychiatrist, right? So
Yeah.
then we move through, we take that with us, and I say we're gonna own it. We're gonna
Yeah.
own our
Mm.
experience.
Yeah.
And then the second word is move with. So now you're going to move with. You're going to make the choice moving forward to move with that trauma. It's going to be your buddy that sits on your shoulder once in a while and talks
Yeah.
bad stories and makes you feel negative and anxious. And
Mm,
and then we're going to move forward.
yeah.
And then ultimately we're going to move up because that's where it all is, right? And I say move
Mm,
up. I use that
mm,
in my Tai Chi and yoga a lot. Like
yeah.
in your heart, that's where it all is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
love that. Yeah. Hmm.
let it all in and let it all out through your heart. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's beautifully said. So it's moving through it. There's the movement. So that's why yoga is so, I mean, important. I have here, I made a note of that, the way you call it, and it's probably a common thing, but for some reason, yeah, you call it the practice of mindfulness techniques as trauma informed yoga. And that also includes breathing and meditation techniques. So, this we already within the topic of illuminating trauma informed care, moving from empathy to transformation. So, this is also a gift that you're offering, and I'll have the link on your podcast notes. That link will be there. So
Right.
that kind of give us that sense of hope, but I think it goes beyond hope. But that comes from wisdom. Of course, your work resonates that way with me: wisdom, healing, spirituality. So, talk to me about the this this trauma informed care. I know I don't think I have heard the term. Of course, I have, but I see you emphasize that. And why is that, Elian? You don't see that being actually explored or let's say addressed by most therapists or the, let's say, the medical industry, the
Or the fitness
yeah,
industry, the
yeah, even the
exercise. I
fitness,
can give you a
right?
really good example. I was in the middle of maybe just I had maybe my trauma informed care certificate studies done for about a year, 2 years, and I wrote this course on it. And I started just bringing this course all over the country. I was working for a company, um, um, SCW, a fitness in company that promotes, right, and does wonderful
Mm,
conventions in every city. So I was a
yeah,
speaker, presenter at one of these conventions. I did that for years, and I brought this trauma up, this
yeah,
trauma-informed care yoga class, and I
yeah.
was working with it at my recovery facility. So what happened is that what we forgot to do as yoga instructors, including myself before I became so aware of it, as as fitness instructors, as yoga instructors,
Mm,
is to do these very, very centered things, these very six principles that we find at the core of it, right? And that is
right.
just understanding that there's a lot of resilience in our body. And
Yeah,
we hold all this pain, right? How many people come to me like this with all their
yeah,
stress in their shoulders, right? And all their anxiety.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
and the second, of course, to understand and accept that it's there, right? We have that trauma and stress. So if your people are coming in the gym, even in the fitness center or even your yoga class, we need to understand that there is everybody is so unique, that there's so much going on, that everybody is having such a unique experience coming into that class, that I see that our settings are definitely not always attuned to that, right?
Mm,
There
yeah.
is, of course, compassion with a lot of people. There's also a lot of instructors that just went to
Yeah.
India and
Yes.
now we're yoga. Sorry, everybody, but I call that Instagram yogis, and there's
Yeah,
us, right? With
yeah,
no, I mean, there's a lot of purpose in that, but that's not mine. So
right.
without being hurtful. And then there's this cultural setting in the studio where what kind of response are we creating, right? Are we able to also touch people? Are they, comfortable with that? We started working with little cards where we had a red and a green card. And if people would stick the little green card out
Yeah.
of their mat, then they would only be able to tell me that I could touch them with my
Mm, yeah,
fingers. If they don't
yeah.
like to be touched because they have a trauma rape physical
Right.
experience, then they would
Right.
stick the little red thing out of the mat, and I would not do that.
Yeah.
So that kind
Yeah.
of setting is really important and understanding. Of course, it has to be safe and it has to be stable, right? And if we are just going to create yoga classes where everybody is just coming in and spread your legs, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
say it that way, right? But honest to truth, it is not at all
Mm,
something that somebody who is physically
right.
hurt can do just like that and is comfortable with
Right.
a, a happy baby, or
Mhm.
a widespread V, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if we leave that out and we're going to start a little bit more with blankets on your belly and things like that, making it
Yeah.
a very beautiful, comfortable setting, then we can all learn so much more from that and make it a very unique experience for everybody in
Yeah.
on their own.
Yeah. It sounds very gentle, right? And of course knowledgeable, and that's where trauma is an interesting phenomena. I see here that you I made some notes on some interesting facts that yeah, you say so many things about trauma that I have heard in different ways. So trauma is a somatic reaction, you say. This means that survivors are registering their trauma as sensations in the body. So, and there's something else you wrote about. It's not just psychological. So the body's very much involved, and it has been my case for many years, experiencing trauma where I couldn't remember anything, uh, any thoughts, like seeing a scar, but I would ask, like, oh, how did this happen? There's no memories there. There's no feelings, emotions. So, and I have heard that means repressed emotions. I have repressed some of those emotions. So I have the scar, but I don't remember. I have no
Mhm.
feelings. Talk to me a little bit about that, Elian, about repressed emotions and then suppressed emotions. What is the difference between them?
I think when we have repressed emotions, we are not really we're not aware of it, but
Yeah,
clinically, I would not exactly know what the huge difference would be. What I do know is, and really trained about and got trained in and shared it, is that the triggers that set it off, we don't always recognize that something would set us off and that would actually relate to something that happened in the past. So it
yes,
might just be, just like you said, we might have these symptoms, these physical
yeah,
symptoms, right? Of dysregulated breath. We
yeah,
have the ability of not breathing, our throat is constricted, or we are just really tense all over in our body. Like I said, we always carry that in our shoulders so much. We don't
yeah.
have the ability to express ourselves anymore. Sometimes we
Mm,
have done it so much almost, but then it's just locked up. We have a lack of presence, like you said, you're not in the moment. You feel nervous, tense, confused, agitated. Uh, all these heightened sensations,
right,
all that all that breathing to the to where you're almost hyperventilating, right? It is
right.
all that happens in
Ah,
that physical body that for so long, and of course, and I know best of on the call studies, right? How all that
yeah,
somatically is kept in our body. So a lot of people might come to me and say, I always have this lower back pain. I always have these somatic issues. And I work with people physically, right? One on
yeah,
one on pain issues as
yeah,
well, on these somatic issues, and trying to get that to relate to a long time frustration, a long time irritation, a
yeah.
long time. People hold a lot of anger in the form of resentment in their
Mm,
body as well, right? There might be a lot of self-esteem issues, a lot of control issues that are related to negative thinking. It all kind of runs around
yeah,
hand in hand,
yeah,
right? Those are big triggers for abuse of substance. Those are big triggers for relationship trouble. So yeah, it is just that whole physical body that we sometimes don't understand. gastrointestinal, all these things that are holding us back, that might be related to things that we have been holding back for decades.
Wow.
And if we are starting to realize or recognize that, then we have the same process, right? Acknowledge, accept. We have to
Mm,
acknowledge and accept that that happened. But now what? What do you want to do instead? What is the alternative? How would you
wow.
like to go through? And do you want to move?
Mm,
Right? I have some
yeah.
people in the past that I worked with that are uh,
Yeah.
rather staying in the drama than wanting to do the work for. And I don't use the word change ever because people
Yeah.
are very intimidated by the word change, but I
Uh,
use the word growth. So for
yes.
my clients, if I say, do you want to grow into a more gentle transformation? Do you want to grow into,
Mm,
an easier person for yourself with happier choices that you're standing behind? Right?
yeah.
This is all very, very self. Do you want to
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
If people are coming to me and say, why are you, I can't stand
Yeah.
you because you're always so happy. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a compliment, right?
Oh, oh
Because
my God.
at this point is a choice. Thank you. If you if you don't like it, you gotta tune out. Yeah.
Right.
There's always that group of people that don't want to go there because they like the right? They like to stay in it, right? So
That's
we have to
interesting.
bring it with a sense of humor. We have to laugh at ourselves. We have to say, "What the heck was I thinking?" So when I wrote that book, it was a process. Coming back to your question from a while ago, it was a process for about a year, 6, 7 months of writing. I wrote with a coach. It was a wonderful experience to kind of keep me focused because I can all be all over the place. Uh,
Tell me about it.
and then get that to into a smooth, wonderful story with an outcome and a wisdom call. It was a beautiful process. But I wrote in my book, life does not get any easier. You
Yeah.
just get better at it. And that
Mm,
getting better at it is a choice. Do you want it or not? If you want to get
yes.
better at life, it is a choice. You can work with anybody to do so and start somewhere, but it's a choice. Life does not get any easier.
Mm,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
I experienced grief and pain and loss, and this morning something might have happened, and it's my
Yeah.
choice to react or respond in a different way to that than
Mm,
I used to.
so true. Yeah, I hear wisdom there. And I had that quote, the quote here, and I didn't mention before, but I did. That caught my attention. Life doesn't get any easier. You just get better at it. Yes, that's a choice. I love that addition. You just added that there, which makes a lot of sense. Everything's a choice, isn't it? It feels like that. So you mentioned that the word change intimidates some people, some of us. What is that about change that creates this resistance?
I think it started with a lot of my um, well, it started with my exes, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Because I was, if you go back to your own pain and you give your
Mm,
trauma a name, I gave my trauma one name,
yeah.
looking back at decades of keeping and sitting on it. I gave my trauma the name of abandonment. So, through
Yeah.
that word abandonment, when I started acknowledging and recognizing, respecting, and making it my own, I saw that the choices I made in the past were out of that abandonment feeling. So, I wanted to clinch to somebody,
Yeah.
not think about myself, change somebody else, right? Or move with somebody because I wanted to be
Mhm.
loved and I wanted to be seen and I wanted to not ever be left alone. And so, for
Yeah.
those reasons, I made my choices coming out of that abandonment
Yeah.
feeling of please never leave me. You're it. Bam. Right.
Yeah.
And that was,
Yeah.
of course, absolutely not working out. Now I see that if you are responding from that, if you are wanting to go into a more of a grow, and somebody wants to grow with you, then your relationship is even and flowing,
Mm.
and there's good
Mm.
communication. It's moving. It might be fun. It might be full of disagreements, but respect.
Yeah.
Right? Respect is so huge. If we don't feel respect, the
Yeah.
relationship is over if I don't feel respected. It's almost bigger than love, I wrote in my book, because love I can find
Yeah.
in many different ways, but respect is really hard
Mm.
to find. So if somebody
Ah,
is losing respect for you, or you lose respect for somebody because they might be having abuse problems, or they might not be available, and especially with men, I have to go back to, I don't want to change, right? Do you
yeah.
want to grow with me? Do you want to keep continuing this beautiful life of learning
Mm.
finding inspiration and finding new things to do? You don't change your personality, but you
Yeah.
can change the way you think, right?
Ah,
I don't have to change my
yes.
humor, my silly self, my crazy Elian being, but I can grow into somebody that thinks a little bit more about her choices
Yeah.
and challenges and the outcome of it.
Yeah. See, that's a very interesting reframing of that word change. So growing or growing together is like that movement again. It goes back to movement. That's beautiful. I love what you do. I mean, I have a lot of devotion for this type of work, or any kind of work that, or any kind of practice that will lead us to that place of seeing, of clarity, seeing that we have the choice, that there's places per se, or placeless places that we can move towards to, that will feel better than the one that we are now.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
truly beautiful. Thank you so much, Elian, for doing what
And
you do.
likewise,
It's
you're
truly
doing
beautiful.
beautiful work. So thank you
Oh
so
my,
much. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I do have a little bit, some other questions here for you, or some comments to make. So, a note I made before I ask you my ending questions, I have the six trauma informed core principles. You have that, you send it to me beautifully illustrated, and then you have you outline them. So, resiliency and recovery, that caught my attention. Even the word resiliency, or being resilient, that made me think about repression, because I interviewed somebody recently who kind of brought this to my attention through his work, which it's very unique. He believes that when we repress emotions in childhood, then it stays in the body, right? It will manifest later on. It could be 40 years later, 50 years later. But that's the way that the brain it's being resilient to trauma. It's almost like we don't feel the impact of the negative experience at the time. So it's almost a protective mechanism. So that
Yeah,
it's very interesting to see that almost like the body itself will protect us, right, Elian, at some
yeah,
from right for harsh impacts, emotional impacts.
yes. I listened to that interview. That was beautiful. Yes. And that was very interesting. I'm sorry I interrupted you
No, it's
there.
okay. Yeah,
But yes, that interview about the repression and our trauma being a safe haven sometimes for us,
yeah,
protecting
yeah,
us, because it is also that level of, I don't want to deal with this right now. So I can actually open my time or my experiences for a lot of other things, right? So
yeah,
in that case, I think, for instance, physically me dancing in my early life, ballet, and then going into that fitness world and being in there now for more than 40 years, that it has always been somewhat of a safe haven for me. I also thought that that was physically protecting me at times of the triggers that could really make me blow up, or made me
right,
do silly things, or maybe that kind of safeguard that he was talking about, being
yeah,
a halt at sometimes, right? Maybe at some
yeah,
point in our life we are able to and ready to process this, and maybe sometimes we do not have to yet process everything. Maybe the
right.
time is not right. I thought that was very interesting. I thought it was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the work of Samuel Mann. And there's something else you say the impact trauma has on the body's physiology is far reaching. And then you said more than that, because trauma has so many physical effects, it is essential for interventions to move beyond talking. So the question that came to me was, uh, what makes the body safe, and how do we know when the body's finally in alignment with the mind per se and in that safe space? What are the signs?
I think that's a very difficult topic, but it has to do with how we ultimately learn to present ourselves physically, right? I work
Ah,
a lot on posture correction and on
yeah,
presentations. And sometimes in the past, with people that were really suffering with deep addictive behavior or deep trauma, there
yeah,
was the way that I said, if we're going to put our sexy back on, which I call use the outside, use your body, present yourself a different way because your body tells me that you're in a very unhappy place, right? We're hunched over, it's also a
yeah,
sign of the time, it's a whole different uh, uh,
yeah, yeah,
keynote that I do about the sign of the time, right? Physically.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's back pain, shoulder pain, everything related to that. And there's so much there. But if we carry ourselves that way, instead of putting our sexy back on and carry ourselves better, then if that's the first thing you do in the morning, including
yeah.
your silly t-shirt or your green yellow hat or
Huh,
your
huh,
crazy red shoes and your purse, right? Your purple purse, then you
yeah,
go out
huh,
with that feeling of I
huh,
don't feel good, I don't have any self-esteem, I just don't like me, I don't like my body. But you can put
huh.
the outside on and the reactions to that from the outside world. Oh, Valeria, you look beautiful. What are you doing today? You look so cute. You look awesome. You feel that
Yeah.
energy coming towards you, and you create a lot of more, some more self-esteem and awareness in the moment about yourself, and that starts
Mm,
immediately reflecting emotionally and mentally, right? So
that's
instead
true.
of staying into that physical body
Ah,
that is closed,
yeah.
if we first learn to open up and accept our body, and that is a lot, that's a whole different story because it has to
Mm,
do with accepting our body, self-love, acceptance,
yes.
right? And um, creating love
Yeah.
and passion and compassion for our body. Being in
Mm,
it,
yeah.
being in it and loving it is a difficult thing to do.
That's true.
Sign of the time there is a lot of people are not loving themselves at all when it comes to their body. And that's just a whole different thing too. It is the trauma informed care, but it's also sometimes just say, hey,
Mm.
snap out of it. Let's put something fun on, right?
Yes.
And if
Yeah.
you know that, then you can do that and kind of create that awareness of how am I stepping out today?
That's
I'm
true.
gonna put my sexy back on. Yeah.
It might start with the mind, with the right attitude and the practices, mental practices, but we have to embody that too, right? In the end, the body needs to participate in this healing process. So it makes a lot of sense. I love how holistic your work is, Elian. It's in how it should be with any kind
Thank you. Yeah.
with anything, right? Any kind of illness, any kind of disease,
Mm,
anything, we need to see the wholeness
I believe
of
it.
what it is, right? Of the human. So my ending questions to you, there's anything, before I ask you the ending questions, there's anything that we left unsaid, Elian? Anything that I missed or we left unsaid here about the topic in your book?
Not at all. About my work, and like you said, it's holistic. I would like to go back to where we are again, sign of the time. So what you just said, the connecting with others, knowing that we're all the same. I don't
Yes.
feel any different than anybody else. I like to connect with them. There is nothing materialistic that is any interesting
Right.
that makes our relationships interesting. The relationship that we have is look at each other and hug. And my first way of healing is touch, of course, right? And the
Yeah.
Reiki, the Tai Chi. If I give you a little pat on your shoulder, you start immediately feeling better. That's the first thing that
Yeah.
we can do to heal.
Yeah.
We have healing hands, and that is so taken away again in our society. Teachers cannot touch the kids
Yeah.
anymore in school. uh, you can't hug anybody because they look weird at you. What do you want? Right? And I'm a hugger. I just want
Yeah.
to hug and touch.
Yeah.
And that is such a healing component in our interconnectedness, and I think that is so
True.
important to bring that back. I know it's difficult, but it's another topic of great conversation
It
with what
is.
work is and what the work entails.
Yeah, right. That it is. Something to be aware of. The touch. That's true. I'm that way too. But sometimes because of my experience with trauma too, I kind of I would feel uncomfortable if I don't know the person well. First, I have to trust them
Yeah,
psychologically to let
yeah,
them in.
yeah,
So, but that's because you see, like you
yeah.
said, it doesn't go away, right? The responses of trauma sometimes they just come back, but it's so important, and I agree, and I do that a lot with my dog and my family. I'm always hugging them,
Yeah,
but then with other people, of course, you and my guests, I will be hugging you immediately, all of you.
I would
If I
hug you.
saw it.
I know it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's because already the mind is already there. It's like, oh my God, it's so healing.
That goes back to the setup of the trauma informed care. So if we set it up to where people come to trust me, then I
Yeah,
can slowly start working with my energy through my hands.
right.
Right? So it's that safe, trusted, soft environment that we can create more for people in general
Yes.
instead of the hardcore. And
Yeah.
I've been there, the hardcore three step classes a day where
Oh,
nobody told me that it was physically not good anyway, right? The
yeah.
things that we used to do, like, oh, I can't walk, I worked
Yeah.
out. No, has
Yeah.
nothing to do with it.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
safety, trust, right. Let's say at the end, I do have this question that I often ask everyone. So I'll ask you two questions to end the conversation today. If there's one message you wish everyone to take from this conversation, you wanted them to listen closely and to take with them for the rest of their lives, what would that be, Elian?
I would love for them to embrace life as is, accept it, and start working forwards. Start planning forwards and moving forwards. Leave the past behind, shame and guilt, things that
Yeah.
have happened have made you as you are. Accept it. I love the word
Mm,
acceptance because if we
yeah.
can go from there, create that awareness of is, what is,
Yes.
then
That's so true. So acceptance is it's a big one. It has been for me. I remember acceptance and then self-love. It was like in that
hmm,
sequence.
yeah.
And then what are three experiences you wish everyone to have before they lose the body, before they die?
Ooh, not to have any regrets about the time they spent with loved ones and with friends, right? Not to have any regrets about living their life true to themselves, of course, something I use a lot,
Yeah.
right? Something that came from the book, The Five Regrets, but I've kind of converted that into a 10-step program, nuggets to live by, just n- just doing and finding your why and bringing that forwards again.
Yeah.
So not to have those regrets of, oh, I worked too hard. I
Yeah.
just didn't see my child growing up. I didn't see and spend time with my loved ones. I was too worried about this, that, letting go of that. And there is something like, it is
Yeah.
possible to let go of anxiety, but we have to learn how.
Mm, true.
We have to learn how.
So
Yes.
true.
That's for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So true. What is another word for freedom, Elian?
Joy, joy and
Yes.
peace. Well, joy in a sense of having that inner peace. So are they connected? Are they together? Yes. I used to wait on the world to make me happy. Now I am in charge of my happiness and nobody else decides. So it
Yeah.
is the peaceful, the difference between happiness and peace, that peaceful, joyful feeling inside that it will always be okay. It's for a reason, even
Yeah.
if I don't like it, right? I might
Yes.
not like it, but
Yes.
I know now that there's reasons, there's a lot more behind it, so I have to have that patience to wait it out. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then not wait on that happiness made by others because I was waiting
Mm,
in my former
mm,
life, I call it, on people to
yeah.
make me happy, and if I have a
Right.
baby, or if I have a house, or if I have a job, right? Somebody
Yeah.
sees me, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like waiting to be happy, right?
yeah.
Having that freedom to be happy now. I mean, that's freedom itself, right? I
It's
agree. I
freedom.
absolutely
It's
agree.
freedom for me. Yes, being
Yeah.
in charge, being in
Yes.
control, knowing. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And where's the best place to find more information about you and your work? Would be your website?
Yeah, my website is good, elianhaan.com. My LinkedIn is even, or Linktree. Linktree is actually
Yeah.
very popular right now, right?
Yeah.
Linktree, Elian Haan, my name, Linktree, Elian Haan. And there's all kind of different buttons about how to get my book or how to make an appointment with me, or how to find my all my social media stuff, or how to find out more about my programs or my speaking or my next book, right? So all
Oh,
these things are on
yeah.
there and kind of step by step. So I would love for people to definitely reach out to me for any free consultation time, complimentary, I should call that.
I
And of
agree.
course, if they want to get my uh, word on trauma informed care, please, please. It's a free PDF, so it's available for everybody. And thank you for doing that. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll have the links on your podcast notes, which is the video interview notes. And I want to thank you for your presence again in this reality share reality and for doing this beautiful work you're doing, just putting yourself out there, giving yourself really to healing. It's truly, truly beautiful. And not just to others, but yourself first, because I see that you have been doing the work. You are very aware of yourself and then passing that on with so much knowledge and clarity. Thank you so much again, Elian, and we'll talk soon.
Thank
Bye
you
for
so
now.
much.
Namaste. Thank
Namaste.
you.
Bye.
Bye.